A VA loan offer is not a weak offer just because it says VA on the paperwork. In Huntsville, that is one of the biggest mistakes a seller can make. Because in this market, VA buyers are not rare. They are often serious, qualified, motivated buyers connected to Redstone Arsenal, the military, the defense industry, or a relocation into Madison County. So if you are selling a home in Huntsville, Madison, Hampton Cove, Madison County, or Owens Crossroads, there is a good chance you may receive a VA loan offer. The real question is not, should I accept a VA loan offer? The better question is this VA offer strong enough based on the full terms? That is what we are going to break down, because turning down a VA buyer because of old myths can cost you a real buyer, and accepting a weak offer just because the price looks good can cost you time, money, and leverage. Let's talk through what Huntsville home sellers really need to know. Most sellers have heard a few things about VA loans. They take forever. The seller has to fix everything. The appraisal is harder. The buyer has no money down, so maybe they are not as strong. Some of that may have had a little truth years ago, but in today's market, a lot of those concerns are either outdated or misunderstood. A VA loan is a mortgage benefit for eligible veterans, active duty service members, and certain surviving spouses. The big advantages for the buyer are simple. They may be able to buy with no down payment. They do not have private mortgage insurance, and they may have access to competitive loan terms. That does not automatically make them weak. In fact, some VA buyers are extremely strong. They may have stable income. They may have strong credit. They may have cash reserves. They may be relocating for a job connected to Redstone Arsenal, Space Command, FBI-related moves, defense contractors, or other federal and military-connected employment. Here in Huntsville, that matters. This is not a random loan type in our market. This is part of our buyer pool. And if you are selling in Madison County, ignoring VA buyers can mean cutting out a serious group of motivated buyers. Now let's deal with the first big concern. Do VA loans take longer to close? The honest answer is this. They can if the buyer is not well prepared or the lender does not know what they are doing, but that is true with conventional loans too. A well-prepared VA buyer using an experienced VA lender can often close in a normal time frame, commonly around 30 to 45 days. So the loan type by itself is not the issue. The lender matters, the buyer's preparation matters, the pre-approval matters, the documentation matters. When I am helping a seller evaluate a VA loan offer, I do not just look at the words VA financing and stop there. I want to know who the lender is. I want to know whether that lender regularly handles VA loans. I want to know whether the buyer has a real pre-approval, not just a quick online letter. And I want to know whether the buyer's certificate of eligibility has been confirmed. That tells us far more than the loan type alone. The second concern sellers have is repairs. A lot of sellers think a VA buyer means the seller will have to fix everything. That is not accurate. VA loans do have minimum property requirements, but those requirements are mainly about safety, soundness, and basic habitability. We are talking about things like working major systems, no active roof leaks, safe access to the property, no major structural problems, and no obvious health or safety hazards. That is very different from saying the house has to be updated. A dated kitchen does not automatically fail a VA appraisal. Older carpet does not automatically fail a VA appraisal. A home that needs cosmetic updates is not automatically a problem, but a leaking roof could be a problem. Unsafe electrical issues could be a problem. Major wood rot or structural issues could be a problem. Peeling paint on an older home can sometimes be an issue, especially if lead-based paint could be involved. So here's the practical way to think about it. If your home is clean, safe, functional, and reasonably maintained, a VA offer may not create any more concern than a conventional offer. But if your home has obvious safety, structural, or major repair issues, then yes, a VA loan may require a closer look. And in some cases, those same issues might create problems for FHA, conventional, or even the buyer's insurance company. So again, the problem may not be the VA loan. The problem may be the condition of the home. The third concern is the appraisal. Some sellers believe VA appraisals always come in low. That is not how it works. A VA appraisal is still based on comparable sales and market value. The appraiser is not trying to punish the seller because the buyer is using a VA loan. The appraiser is looking at the property, the contract price, and the nearby comparable sales. If the home is priced correctly and the market supports the value, a VA appraisal should not be automatically feared. But if the home is overpriced, that is a different issue. And that is true no matter what kind of loan the buyer is using. A low appraisal is often a pricing problem, not a VA problem. This is why pricing correctly from the beginning matters so much in Huntsville. Buyers have more information than ever. Appraisers have to support the value, and the market will usually expose an overpriced listing quickly. Now let's talk about seller concessions. This is where sellers can get confused. A VA buyer may ask the seller to contribute toward closing costs, prepaid expenses, or other allowed items. That does not mean you should automatically reject the offer. You evaluate the net, not just the price. For example, let's say one buyer offers $360,000 but asks for $5,000 in seller-paid costs. Another buyer offers $355,000 with no seller-paid costs. On the surface, the $360,000 offer sounds higher, but once you do the math, those offers may be very similar. That is why you do not make decisions based only on the headline price. You look at the net proceeds, you look at the financing, you look at the inspection terms, you look at the appraisal risk, you look at the closing date, you look at the buyer's preparation. That is how you compare offers correctly. In plain terms, a VA offer should be judged the same way you judge any other offer. What is the real net? How likely is it to close? How much risk is in the terms? How much time does the seller need? What happens if something goes wrong? That is the right conversation, not VA bad or conventional good. That is too simple. And in the Huntsville market, it can be flat wrong. So what does a strong VA offer look like? First, it has a solid pre-approval from a lender who understands VA loans, not just a generic online approval, not a lender who rarely touches VA files. You want a lender who knows the process and can communicate clearly. Second, the buyer should be well prepared. That means their eligibility has been reviewed, their income and assets have been evaluated, and the lender can explain where things stand. Third, the offer terms should make sense. A normal closing timeline is usually more comfortable than a timeline that is unrealistically short. Seller-paid costs should be reviewed against your net. Inspection terms should be clear, and the appraisal contingency needs to be understood. Fourth, the property condition needs to fit. If the house is well maintained, the VA appraisal may not be a major concern. If the home has obvious repair issues, then you need to think carefully before accepting the offer or be prepared to address those items if they come up. This is where local experience matters because Huntsville is not a generic market. We have military buyers, we have federal employees, we have defense contractors, we have relocation buyers, we have people moving here for jobs connected to Redstone Arsenal, Cummings Research Park, Space Command, and the broader defense sector. Many of those buyers are using VA financing, and a lot of them are not casual buyers. They are moving for a reason. They have a timeline. They need housing. They may be comparing Huntsville, Madison, Hampton Cove, Owens Crossroads, and other parts of Madison County quickly. If your home fits their needs, they may be very serious. That is why sellers need to be careful about rejecting a VA offer too quickly. Now, does that mean every VA offer is strong? No, absolutely not. Some VA offers are weak. Some conventional offers are weak. Some cash offers are not as clean as they look once you read the terms. That is why you have to evaluate the whole offer. A cash offer with a low price, long inspection period, and vague terms may not be better than a VA offer from a qualified buyer with a strong lender and a clean timeline. At the same time, a VA offer with a shaky lender, high seller concessions, a long closing timeline, and a home condition concern may need to be negotiated carefully. The loan type is only one piece of the puzzle. The full offer tells the story. Here's the simple plan I recommend for Huntsville sellers. First, do not reject the offer because it is VA. Slow down and look at the full terms. Second, verify the buyer's strength. Ask about the lender, the pre-approval, the buyer's preparation, and whether the lender regularly handles VA transactions. Third, look at your home honestly. If the home has major safety, roof, structural, electrical, plumbing, or access issues, talk through the risk before accepting the offer. But if the home is well maintained and functional, do not assume VA financing is a problem. Fourth, compare net proceeds. Price is important, but price alone does not tell you what you will actually walk away with. A higher offer with seller concessions may not beat a lower clean offer, and a lower offer with stronger terms may sometimes be the safer choice. The goal is not to accept the highest number. The goal is to accept the best offer. Those are not always the same thing. Here's what can go wrong if you guess. You could reject a strong VA buyer and keep waiting for a better offer that never comes. You could accept a higher offer that looks better on paper but falls apart later. You could overlook repair concerns that should have been addressed before going under contract. Or you could focus so much on the loan type that you miss the real strengths or weaknesses of the offer. Selling a home is stressful enough. You do not need myths making the decision harder. You need clear math, clear terms, and a realistic understanding of the Huntsville buyer pool. When you evaluate the offer correctly, you can make a better decision. You know what the buyer is really bringing to the table. You understand the possible risks. You can negotiate from a stronger position, and you can move forward with more confidence. So should you accept a VA loan offer in Huntsville? Maybe. And sometimes, absolutely. A VA loan offer can be a very strong offer when the buyer is qualified, the lender is experienced, the timeline is reasonable, and the home meets basic property standards. Do not let the letters VA scare you off, but do not accept blindly either. Look at the whole offer. That is where the truth is. If you're thinking about selling, buying, relocating, or investing in the Huntsville area, this is where a short conversation can save you a lot of time and guesswork. Schedule your free 20-minute strategy call using the link in the description. And if you are comparing multiple offers, especially one with VA financing, make sure you are looking at the full picture before you decide. Because the best offer is not always the flashiest offer. It is the one most likely to get you where you want to go.